Good
Good
evening.
evening.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hello. Hello. Hello. Hello. Hello.
All right, good.
Questions? Anybody else hear us?
Good evening and welcome to the Wenham Select Board session for March 21st, 2023, opening at 6:16 p.m. This will be a virtual meeting for the public, in person for the Select Board and staff. The roll call votes and is being recorded. First order of business schedule is to go to executive session.
Attendance.
Attendance, yes, in attendance.
Peter Clay.
Diane Bucco.
And Gary Cheeseman. First order of business, so we'll be adjourning to an executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may be detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares concerning the library union.
Second.
There's a second, and roll call vote. Peter?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Gary, yes. So we'll adjourn to another room and be back shortly for the public. Thank you. Good evening again. Reconvening the Town of Wenham Select Board meeting for March 21st, 2023, back in open session at 6:32. In attendance is,
Peter Clay?
Diane Bucco.
and Gary Cheeseman, and this will continue to be a virtual recorded roll call meeting. First order of business is any public input. Anybody with their hands up? Michelle?
We have one
Well, there's one.
over to the right. See the little hand? Oh, they're all in the waiting room. Here, let them all in.
So we need to repeat what?
Oh, they came late, so we don't have to. All right.
So,
Someone
Having
has-
called the
Michelle-
meeting-
Michelle Bailey has her hand.
yes,
Oh.
having called meeting back to order, we're in public session, and Michelle Bailey recognized to speak in public comments.
Hi, Michelle Bailey, 2 Remington Road. I guess I have 3 things I wanted to comment about. One, I just wanted to express my concern about the frequent amending of agendas lately and encourage people to, if you're not ready for something in a meeting, to postpone it to the next meeting. It's not always giving appropriate notice to the public. Next thing I wanted to ask about is I received my warrant in the mail today, and I noticed that salaries are missing from this. And I know that one of the things that we do at town meeting is vote the salary schedule. So I'm concerned that I'm not going to be able to vote for this budget without that information. And the last thing is I've heard that the Board of Selectmen is trying to remove a member of the Master Planning Committee. And I would encourage you to research past practice on FinCom members serving as representatives on other committees, such as on the Audit Committee and on the Search Committee for when Peter Lombardi was selected as our town administrator, because past practice has allowed that to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. And Steve, you can reply to the salary schedule.
Yeah, an amendment sheet will be available online in the next day or two, listing everybody's salary, and also the handout will be, if the moderator approves, will be on everybody's seat as well when they get to town meeting.
All right. I don't see any other hands, do we? Phil Colarusso. Yes.
Yes, thank you. I know that.
Phil, you need to name and address and subject.
Sorry. Yep. Phil Colarusso, 14 Juniper Street. I know that Ernest is going to speak to the PFAS issue later in this meeting as it pertains to our drinking water. I wanted to raise it within the context of the proposed turf fields. I think that there's been a fair amount of credible scientific evidence to support the idea that turf fields are sources of PFAS. And I know our water numbers are over the proposed EPA standard. I suspect that Hamilton's are as well. And when you're in a hole, the first thing you should do is stop digging. And I think adding another source of PFAS within our community is something that we should really seriously think about before we do it. I think this is a significant change in circumstance, and I realize that people have been working on this issue for many years, but the proposed EPA standard is new information, and I think it requires thorough vetting since it's a public health issue going forward.
Thank you, Phil.
I think of Rick Woodland.
And Rick Woodland, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rick Woodland, 26 Maple Street. I have 2 questions. One, I was a little concerned noticing that executive session was used to discuss salary and contract for the town administrator, and I thought that was supposed to be done in open session, nuanced. Certain parts are, certain parts aren't. I just want to make sure that the certain parts that should be in the public domain are going to be in the public domain. Thank you. That's really all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thought he said two.
And that item will be covered later on the agenda as well tonight. All right. Very well then. Thank you for your comments, everybody. And on to announcements. Steve?
Yep. So, here we got early voting for Wenham's local election this year, 2023. See the dates up there. We got Tuesday, March 28th from 12 to 6:30 p.m. Wednesday, the 29th, 10 to 4. Thursday, the 30th, 10 to 4. Monday, April 3rd, 10 to 4. And then we have election day on Thursday, April 6th, 2023, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. right here in Town Hall. And this is the annual census, just keeping it up there. We've, folks who have returned it, thank you. Folks who are still getting to it, we encourage you to submit it. The information that's provided really helps the community qualify for grants and, in affordable housing and economic development and things like that. And, just again, the annual town meeting will be held at the Bucher School Saturday, April 1st at 1 p.m. Just to reiterate, there is a plan to use electronic clickers, so that adds an extra dynamic to the check-in process. So we're asking everybody to please arrive early. I know, in prior town meetings, the tendency has been to arrive closer to the 1 p.m. time, but we're going to start checking people in at noontime. So the closer to noontime, the better. We can so we can make sure the meeting starts at 1 and get the business done. And again, this year we'll be offering town babysitting for the town meeting hours. It's from 12:30 to 5 p.m. at the Miles River School. For information, please contact the emails for Ashley Paquette or Julie Cahill O'Shea. You can see the emails down at the bottom, or if you want a copy of this page of those emails, feel free to call or email the Select Board's office, and we can forward you the information from there via an email. And this is rain barrels for purchase. We qualified again this year to offer rain barrels for purchase at a discounted price, and then wasn't it of $89, and if you're a Wenham resident, you get an additional $40 off that using the coupon code WEN23. So definitely take advantage of that. That's a great deal. I have one at my house that works great. I pay a lot more than $49, so take advantage of it. And the Wenham Michelle here has completed, both thanks to all the department heads and Michelle for putting it all together and proofing it, and all the work that goes into assembling this document. It came out great this year, and it'll be available for download on the website Wednesday the 22nd, so that's tomorrow. And we are only printing 25 copies this year. In past years, we've done runs of 200 or 300. And generally, we only have about 20 to 25 takers. So this year, we're just going to run the 25, and if there is a need, we can run another batch of 25. But it will be available to download electronically on the website. All right.
And yours again, Steve, for Town Administrator's update?
A couple things. So first, we got the numbers in from the state on the Route 97 paving. I'm not sure if everyone's aware, but the state has stepped up and offered to pave Route 97, which is a state route, but it is maintained by the town of Wenham. So typically we would be required to do the paving on that road. And so Rich Souza, our DPW director, has been going back and forth with the state with the original scope of work, and, you know, since he's intimately knowledgeable about the area, we've gone back and forth with change orders, and the final paving cost that the state will be, on top of the fact that they'll be managing the project for us, is $825,000. So that's
A huge
a huge
savings.
help. That would take us, you know, probably a decade of squirreling away Chapter 90 funds to
Great.
pay for a project like that. So that's great news. The warrant book, I know someone alluded to, they already got it already, but it did go out in the mail on Monday, so you should be looking forward. And the folks on Walnut Road, we will be hand delivering those tomorrow. So you can expect your copy to be in your mailbox tomorrow. Someone from Town Hall will walk the street and put them in the mailboxes.
So those are for the few Wenhamites that are actually in the Hamilton postal zip code area.
That's
Right.
On the ballot, we have a ballot update. It was brought to our attention last week that there was some clerical errors on the ballot. So we have had them reprinted and a new sample generated, so that should be updated on the website, and all the appropriate correct ballots have been mailed out. Well, excuse me, will be mailed out tomorrow. We should be receiving them overnight, mail by tomorrow. And the other thing, so we're having, this is for, you know, if anyone has any requests for town meeting that you're concerned we won't be incorporating, that's been incorporated in prior town meetings. I just, you know, I'm cognizant of the fact that, you know, we have a lot of new staff here, and if you want to bring up anything, let me know directly, because we'll be having our coordination meeting for staff on Friday, along with the IT support. So that's when we need to know, and I'll be able to coordinate through the moderator, which of course gets the ultimate say.
Can you, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you mean.
Oh, town meeting, it's just basically I'm looking for feedback if anyone has anything that they want to add.
To add to the
Next.
meeting?
Well, that they're concerned may be left out that has been done historically,
Okay,
to let me know, because our final meeting will be next Friday.
the 31st.
Yes.
Yep.
And that includes setup and so forth, that Roger Smerge, as moderator, will make the final decision on.
That's correct.
Right.
And that's all I got.
All right. For the chair's report, I'll start off with one item that all three of us attended under the announcement on the website, that the Maple Woods project on Maple Street is well underway. Harbor Light Homes hosted a photo session and a first shovel load of dirt. In
Groundbreaking.
fact, there was many groundbreaking.
Yeah.
There was actually many shovel loads, and those that may have passed by in the distance, you can see that they're well underway with the almost all the foundation in, some plumbing pipes going in, and the elevator structure starting out. But more importantly for us is the fact that Wenham residents need to get engaged if you have any intention at all of moving into Maple Woods, that the next session is 3rd of April at the library at 11 a.m. in the morning. And it's important to understand that get into the lottery, there's no commitment until the lottery's handled, and then they come back to you a second time and say, do you really want to move in? So you don't have to take any other actions other than to fill out the paperwork at this time. So that's really a great setup, knowing that Wenham residents, we have 29 slots out of the 45 reserved for Wenham residents, but that's only on the first draw. After that, it'll be just general applications. So 3rd of April, library, 11 a.m. You may have seen a second item around town. Many trees have white notices on them and red tags, and that's from National Grid has identified trees that they feel is hazardous to the power grid. Questions on that may be addressed to the town tree warden and to the planning board at their public hearing at April 13th, 7 p.m. in the town hall. And the third item, which is tomorrow night, is the Human Rights Active Bystander Training Their first of 3 sessions is live and will be at the Community House starting tomorrow at March 22nd, 7 to 9 p.m. So a good one for folks to attend. Diane?
I do have some information. I went to the veterans, first I wanted to mention that I will be at the library tomorrow, March 22nd at 6 p.m. if anyone wants to chat about Wenham. So hopefully someone will come, or maybe a few. I was at the Veterans Committee meeting last week or the week before, I've lost track. And I have a few things for them. They are working really hard on the Memorial Day Parade on May 29th. It looks as if the parade is going to kick off in this area from the Veterans Memorial at 11 and march down to the cemetery where most of the ceremony will take place. They have a lot of information on that. They are working very well with the Hamilton Legion and figuring out some way to share the band a little bit better than we've had in the past. So that should be exciting. The Cemetery Commission has bought all the flags to switch off on the graves, so they will be planning and probably announcing a Saturday to go and do some work at the cemetery to spiff it up a little bit. The flag burning day is scheduled for Flag Day, which I think is June 16th. We did it last year in the evening, so they'll let us know when that's going to be. And the only other thing I wanted to add to the Harbor Light groundbreaking was that if you're of that age and you're over 62, you should take a look at this lottery, whether you're thinking about moving into it or not. It's a really neat place. It might work for you, and you don't want to miss the opportunity to apply. So everyone should check it out. And then a quick question for Gary and Peter. We all got an email, I believe, to see if anyone was interested in folding newsletters at the COA tomorrow morning. So I didn't know if anyone was planning on going.
I'll go.
Okay, or I could go. I mean, I'm available to go, but we can't all go.
Right?
No, I know.
Right,
No.
so you're going. You're on.
Yep.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much.
Over to Peter?
So I attended last week a big event for the North Shore Water Resilience Task Force. Well attended. It was more of a celebration. It wasn't like actually anything got done. We have another meeting on the 28th where we're actually going to do stuff. But there were a lot of pols there, a lot of people. So well attended. There's a
Senator Tarr's.
Yeah, he's got a lot of people behind him, and we'll just see where that goes. So that's all I got.
All right. Moving on to the consent agenda. We have a motion.
I move to approve the open, I shouldn't do this.
You can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Move to approve the open session minutes dated February 21st, 2023, and March 7th, 2023.
Second.
Anything further? Roll call vote. Peter?
Yes.
Diane?
Didn't we have a change in there? Didn't you find March 22nd?
Well, you can just editorial there. It's just
yeah.
one date in there, so.
It was just one date.
Catherine's doing this from tape, so we'll take care of that.
Okay, so second. Roll call vote, yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Diane says yes, sorry.
All right, I move to approve and release the executive session minutes dated March 7th, 2023.
Second,
Anything further? Peter?
Yes.
Diane?
yes.
Gary, yes. All right, on to new business. Item A. Is the
Yeah, I saw
Chieftain Appleon?
Yes.
Chief, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I a quick, easy one here. Sergeant Machine, who just retired a few weeks ago after a long career all in Wenham, is just expressing an interest to stay in town as a special police officer. His only function would be to work details, so it'd be no financial obligation to the town. And he already has his requisite training that's required, and then future training annually he would do on his own time. So it's just to allow him to assist with traffic details.
Any questions, Diana?
He didn't want to stay away?
No, he couldn't stay away, so we're happy to have him.
No, that's great.
I move that the Wenham Select Board approve Sergeant Christopher Mashane as a Wenham Police Department Special Officer effective today, March 21st, 2023.
Second?
Anything further? Roll call, Peter?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Gary, yes. Congratulations, Sergeant Mashane, our latest special officer.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Chief.
All right. So, Steve, let me turn it over to you because we're striking items B, C, D, and eventually F, G, H, as we've found that the change in Essex Aggie budget will not necessitate opening the warrant.
Yeah, so where the warrant was already posted by the constable, we can't reopen the warrant, so council said to take a confirmatory vote, confirming and acknowledging that Article 7 has been, updated with the new budget number to account for Essex Aggie, and also that your variable action vote is unchanged. So it remains, if both are satisfactory to the board, then we don't have to do anything. If anything changes and it's not satisfactory, then it would be a town meeting floor amendment.
Right.
So we should do that vote now? The
Yes.
confirmatory, is that what you said?
Yeah. Should be maybe one of the slides I updated.
I'm back up. So, I'll just,
That's
So,
Make a
no, because
motion.
we're not amending it, no.
yeah, so,
right there.
There we
There
go.
it is, right.
So I move that the Wenham Select Board make a confirmatory vote that the warrant posted by the constable, Mr. David O'Leary, on March 15, 2023, reflects a budget appropriation of, oh boy, $23,117,427 being raised in Article 7, and that all Select Board members maintain its prior recommendation of favorable action at the Town of Wenham's April 1st, 2023 annual town meeting.
Second?
anything further?
No.
Roll call vote, Peter?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Gary, yes.
And so we could just explain that the increase a little bit was because there are more students, more Wenham students at the Essex Tech right
Yeah,
now.
So the original assumption that we were running off was 8 students that would attend. It's actually 11 students. So the increase is about little like 30,000 and change. So about the $10,000 per student increase.
All right, thank you.
Good for them.
Yeah, good for them, because
Yeah.
it's a very selective process. Multiple candidates are applying for
Correct.
each of the slots there now. All right,
So we go all the way to I? Yeah.
to I, then. So I believe Ernest Ashley, our chairman of the Water Commission, is on.
Yes, I am. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you. So if you could start what's probably going to be a long months or years process, can you give us the start of the information on the new EPA proposed regulations?
Yes, thank you. Ernest Ashley, 9 Foster Street. I have been the water commissioner for some probably 15 years now, and I've prepared some information for the select board. On Thursday, March 16th, US EPA announced their plan to establish maximum contaminant levels, or MCLs, for 2 of the PFAS-specific compounds and a maximum level for a group of these compounds. Those proposed levels are lower than the current MCLs established by Mass DEP. They are also lower than the detected concentrations that we have in Wenham's water sources. PFAS is an acronym for per and polyfluorinated alkyl substances. And these compounds have been referred to as forever compounds because the carbon-fluorine bond created in their manufacture is so strong it does not break down in nature. They may also be referred to as everywhere compounds because at the levels we are now able to analyze them, they are detected in almost everywhere and everything. We measure our groundwater to parts per trillion. A parts per trillion is equivalent to 1 second in 32,000 years. We started analyzing our groundwater for PFAS about 2 years ago, just before the Mass DEP required it. We have consistently been below Mass DEP's MCL of 20 nanograms per liter or parts per trillion, but we would be above the 4 parts per trillion proposed criteria for 2 of the compounds and above the sum of 10 for these 4 others. We analyze quarterly at 1 well and monthly for our deeper well, which has slightly higher concentrations, and they have all been below the Mass MCL. We do not know the specific source of the PFAS that we detect in our groundwater, but we suspect that it is from our septic systems. We do not have any industry that uses PFAS in town. We don't know of any instances where firefighting foam, perhaps the most significant source of PFAS, was used in the town. As I mentioned, these compounds are everywhere and in lots of consumer products such as Scotchgard, many nonstick pans, fast food wrappers, microwave popcorn containers, cosmetics, and as a result, the water we discharge to our septic systems. We anticipate that the EPA will finalize these proposed MCLs by the end of the year, and that Mass DEP will follow EPA's lead and require drinking water systems like ours to comply, probably within 3 years. That will mean Wenham will have to install treatment to remove PFAS and to reduce the concentrations to below MCLs. That treatment will involve the installation of granulated activated carbon filtration between the wells and the current treatment building, where we currently add chlorine for sanitation or disinfection, a chemical to keep copper and lead from leaching out of our pipes, and solder, and fluoride for public health. Superintendent Mansfield and I have been in contact with the consultant assisting Hamilton regarding PFAS treatment. We will continue to work to identify available options and related costs. And in addition to treatment for our groundwater sources, we're looking into potential options potential options and the related costs. In addition to treatment for our groundwater sources, we could obtain water from Beverly Salem or further in future, potentially from the Massachusetts Water Resources Authority. We are participating in Senator Tarr's Regional Water Task Force. However, we expect that we will need to and will want to provide treatment for our own water. We're not prepared at this time to provide estimated costs, but we understand that it will be significant for a town our size. We are monitoring the future funding sources that may assist towns like ours to comply with the proposed needs. And I would like to conclude by noting our drinking water is safe, and we continue to provide safe drinking water to the town. We currently meet all current standards and will work towards meeting lower standards when they come into effect. The concentrations of PFAS in our drinking water are very low, as are some other constituents, both man-made and naturally occurring. And we detail these in a consumer confidence report that comes out in June. We also provided a letter in May of 2021 to notify that after our first results for PFAS were received. If the residents want to do more to further reduce the level of PFAS and disinfection byproducts in their water now, then home filters with activated carbon, such as Brita filters and those in a refrigerator, have been shown to be effective and can make the water taste even better. So that's all I'd have to offer, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ernest, for that good information. I'll go to Peter first. Questions?
I have no questions.
Diane?
Just curious, Mr. Ashley, are PFAS new? Like you just said, in 2020, you guys first found them. Is it something that's new in the water that everybody's talking about?
Yes, thank you, Diane. In my industry, they call them emerging contaminants, and they just keep emerging, meaning we were worried about others, 1,4-dioxane and the like before. But now these have been identified with greater accuracy in the analytical process, and EPA has studied them to decide that there are lower levels that should be regulated. So in this case, they are not new. They have been in manufactured products ever since Teflon and Gore-Tex and the similar products have been invented. The two main operators that they have, or actors that they have started to regulate, PFOS and PFOA, at those numbers, have been banned from production in the United States. But that's not to say they are not present in products.
Thank you.
So decades building up, and now it's going to have to be many years and quite a high cost, I
Lot of money.
understand, to resolve our environment. All right. Anything else you'd like to add, Ernest?
No, thank you, Gary. You're correct. There will not be a zero. We cannot get to a point where we will never detect this stuff, but we can certainly do what we can to continue to treat the water appropriately, and we'll comply with those criteria when they are issued.
All right. Thank you, Ernest.
Thank you.
Great briefing, and there'll be a continuing conversation, I think, going forward.
Very good.
Thank you. All right, item J is a declaration of the Arbor Day proclamation. So at our last meeting, we adopted the tree policy and want to join the Tree City USA. One of those was to declare an Arbor Day proclamation. So we actually celebrated Arbor Day last year, and this is kind of a retro declaration of Arbor Day 22 that we're doing tonight, and we'll do Arbor Day 23 at the next meeting. So if there's no questions, we can just move to the motion.
So we're not going to read the,
I move that the Wenham Select Board vote to declare the Arbor Day proclamation.
All right. So do we, Michelle, do we have the full proclamation up there? It's quite lengthy. Do you want to read it?
probably, is it going to be online? Is it going to be on the website?
We can put it, but I mean, it's what we had already done, so.
Right, but we
Right.
should put it up
All
again.
right,
Arbor
very
Day's
well.
coming, yeah. But I second that
All
motion.
right. So, and there'll be a new proclamation at the next meeting for this April's Arbor Day.
Okay,
Right.
why a new proclamation? This is dated March 21st.
Yes, because as I attempted to explain,
Why?
this is last year's, so we have the full paperwork for Tree City USA,
Okay,
all right?
I get it.
This year's will be at the next meeting. Got it? All
I
right.
got it, I'm sorry.
All right,
Part of it, we had to proclaim it.
Right, right,
So that they'll accept it.
yeah,
all right,
a little bit behind. But
All right.
I seconded, we didn't vote yet.
all right, seconded, and anything else? Otherwise, the vote, Peter?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Gary, yes. All right. Next one.
Oh, want to do this one, Gary?
Yeah, I
Do
can,
this one?
yeah, go ahead, Steve. You got the,
So this is the Longfellow Betterment. So this is just by way of background. A couple months ago, 6 weeks, 2 months ago, everything's kind of running together. But we went over the betterment, the process on how we arrived at the betterments, the methodology. A lot of work went into coming up with what we feel is a fair resolution to the project. And so what this is doing is it's simply it's the select board needs to approve and authorize the assessor and treasurer collector to place it on a warrant for the mailing and set the interest rate. So it's a 0% interest-free loan for the folks that choose to pay it over time. So again, no change. It's just simply authorizing the assessor and the treasurer to place it on the warrant and move forward with their billing process.
questions, Peter?
Nope.
Diane?
Nope.
All right,
I move that the Wenham Select Board vote to approve the betterment lien list and to authorize the assessor and treasurer collector to place it on a warrant at a 0% interest.
Second?
anything further? Roll call vote, Peter?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Gary, yes.
Is that an annual thing?
No, it's just what
One
the
time.
original,
Okay.
the creation of the official,
The
the
actual.
original warrant.
Right, okay, thank you.
Oh, sir, the next item, L, is really a grant, more money that the town has received, and I believe this was Vicky Masson, our
Yeah,
What is it,
Mike Hardy
coordinator?
and Vicky Masson worked to get into the grant process. So what this does is weatherization to the building envelopes of the, I believe it's the police station, the library, and the town hall here. Right? There's a list.
Iron Rail Building,
Iron Rail Building. There you go.
Town Hall.
So town hall, and so what it will do, it's weatherization strips. So for replacing weatherization strips around the boiler room, exterior doors, roof and wall joints, sealing the soffits, things of that nature. The total cost, additionally, we'll save on utilities, but the total cost to have the work installed is about $75,000. So significant grant that Mike chased down with the help of Vicky Masson. So
And it's all covered by the grant?
yep,
Yes.
100%. Yep.
Wonderful.
That is good.
So thank you to our two there that brought us the money and the motion.
I move that the Wenham Select Board vote to approve the agreement between the town of Wenham and B2Q Associates.
Second,
Anything else?
No,
Roll call, Peter?
yes.
Diane?
yes.
Gary, yes.
Right, so
This is yours too, Steve,
Okay.
if you want.
So this is really just an open, just a discussion around the Adopt Island program. This is actually something I meant to bring up to you earlier, Diane, but,
I forgot about it too.
so, basically, it looked like at some point in the past, there was a formal application process and sort of an awarding of the islands, that you can adopt to maintain. And it's, it kind of was dropped over the last few years, and we've had some questions as of late as to who has the rights to, essentially maintain the island. So we're looking to, piece it together. I know the garden club does some of the plantings, right, Michelle, is that what you're saying?
They do the planters.
They do the planters, but as far as like generally it seems to be a business that will adopt the island, responsible for maintaining it. We're gonna re-implement the official process. So I think on the next, do we have the application
Yeah, the next,
on the next?
second one.
So this is to rotate it.
The next one too.
Well, first thing, I think we should say thank you to the organizations, the businesses, the Hamilton Wenham Garden Club that over the
Well,
years have maintained that.
Yes,
And now we'll go into,
but before you do that,
reestablishing
I don't see where the garden club comes into play here, because I think this is about the islands. So the planters and everything, the garden club takes
Right.
care of all that, and the DPW just takes around it. The islands, I thought this was, on 97 at Cherry, there's 2 islands there. Where else are the islands that you guys are talking about?
Right over here. There's one right over at Cherry Street. It's
Cherry in Maine.
Yeah, so those, but I don't really count those as islands, because because those planters are already paid for through sponsorships through the garden club.
Right.
So there's no island, there's no other business that could take over that island. So like on Arbor, there's 2 planters, 2 businesses already pay for that every year.
Right,
So-
and what we've come is the planters that the businesses pay for, there seems to be, without going into specifics, but there seems to be a conflict as to who has the rights to maintain what.
Have you spoken with the garden club?
Yes.
Because that's where I'm confused, because Bucco Plastering, we have one, and we pay for
Right.
that, and the garden clubs, we plant it, and we remove it, and we plant it, and we remove it, but I thought this was talking about those other islands that I,
Yeah, well, this is all, I guess all encompassing, because,
Okay.
basically what brought it up was a conflict on who has the rights to do it. Both, two individuals feel like they own or have the right to maintain the same spot.
not to be like a complete capitalist, but why don't we put it up for bid?
so,
Yeah.
but so one of these Garden Club Islands, that's where the issue is?
Yeah, so, and we, going back, trying to do our due diligence to figure it out, we realized that the Adopted Island Application Program application hasn't been utilized in several years. So we really have no existing paperwork that we can find as to who has the rights. So basically, this is just open discussion to let you know that,
Okay.
if you have any feedback, let us know. If the public has any feedback, please let us know. And we'll be working on coming up with, implementing this in a formal policy that will come before the select board so that, just going forward, we have clear records as to who
Okay.
does what.
I think it came up in like 2013, 2014, when those two islands on 97 all of a sudden have these signs that say Town of Wenham, or I can't remember which business it was, but it was the seal is on those islands. So those were the islands that were, I think, the Adopt an Island program. And there was discussion about the use of the seal that came up.
Right.
So that's what,
And that
that's,
could be a lot of speculation. That's
Yeah,
why I think
so-
if we just get a formal process.
a formal process would be good. So I do have a couple things. I have a couple typos on it, pretty easy. And the use of the seal has to be mentioned, whether they can or can't use it, in my mind. And there's no cost on it yet. So
Right, yeah.
those are my things that I just noticed.
That's something you'd like to see a cost, or just the cost of maintaining?
Well,
I don't
think,
know.
the intention originally, I would expect, was to beautify the intersection, and people, individuals or businesses stepped up and said, hey, we'll take care of this intersection for you, and we just want a little bit of a nice sign showing that we're doing that.
I think once we establish all the rules and everything, then the question is, who else wants to?
Right. Or we should look too, if there's other intersections in town
Mm-hmm.
that could benefit as well. Perhaps somewhere around the school or such. All right, so we.
Yeah, so it's an idea, I think it's a great idea to bring up. I'll just shoot my typos to you
Perfect.
and see if any residents might know more too.
Yeah, if anyone wants to reach out and, has more backstory, please let
Yeah.
me know. Let us know.
Knows the full story from many,
Yeah.
many years ago. Right,
I like all the other stuff on it, though. Signage, plants that die, take them out. It's pretty good.
No weeds.
No weeds, yeah.
all right.
Thank
Oh,
you
it
for
is
that.
on there. No weed free.
Yeah.
All right, item N, announcement of the town administrator contract change. Yes, the select board has met, and no change in the financial situation.
Right.
There was a questions on terms that were originally put in the contract as to whether the town administrator could handle certain outside job, well, not really jobs, but
Commitments.
Professional engagements.
professional engagements. And so we positively gave Steve that authority with our permission. And also, there was the question of, originally, wanted to make sure that full attention was paid, and it has been, that Steve could continue as the elected office in his hometown of Essex. And the third one was a measure extending from 6 months to 12 months, the pay that would be accorded if we decided that we would separate ways. That fairly much cover it, Peter and Diane?
So I just say that the outside work or the outside professional engagements would be acceptable, but they need to be approved as well. So
Yes.
it's not like,
Pre-approval
just so
basis,
that
yes.
everybody's aware of that. So those were just those three changes.
Very well. And otherwise, the contract continues for another 2.5 or close years.
Yep.
Right.
Fly by in an instant.
Thank you, Steve. All right. The stabilization fund, something that has not been seen at town meeting for a long, long time. But Steve, I think you've built up some slides here and give us some background on why we should be contributing to a stabilization fund.
Here, zoom in on that a little. There we go. All right, so I put this chart together. What this is, This chart up to about 2022 existed in the November financial overview that we presented at a joint select board and FinCom meeting. So what we did was, there's also through a number of the FinCom meetings, we've kind of have talked off of as a presentation piece, a numerical forecast. And what this does is it's a way to try to visualize the forecast, kind of what's going on with free cash and the importance of a stabilization fund. So currently we have about $550,000 in a stabilization fund. It hasn't been funded in several years. And we have what's called net free cash, net of appropriation, after appropriation, as a percent of expenditures. So now, if you looked at the GFOA, or the Collins Center has some periodicals out about it, which is out of UMass Boston, excuse me, and they suggest that we have between 5 and 12% of what's called reserve funds put aside, that you basically a rolling amount as a percentage of expenditures. So, and it's a wide range, but you got to think about it as, you got to look at a community specific. So we're a community that is relatively small. We have a history of voting debt exclusions for major capital projects. We don't have we don't have a large exposure to state aid, which can be volatile in economic times. Roughly only about, unrestricted state aid is only a couple percent of our whole budget. We don't have huge commercial, so commercial does have its benefits, but it also can decay over time, and large vacancies can create massive valuation problems, where the properties are deemed basically worthless, which would result in a large shift onto the residential. So that all that's saying that our revenue sources that we do have, primarily residential tax base, makes up 95% of it, is very strong. So we don't have a lot of exposure to the economic variables that some of the larger communities have, or these indicators really are nationwide. So the states outside of Massachusetts that have different revenue structures. So generally, I think that it's appropriate to be on the lower end for a town like Wenham, probably towards the 5% of maintaining thereabouts, a little bit above. And what this is it's basically, show that we have a trend of declining reserves. You can see that pretty clearly, 2017 through 2023. B, we don't have any formal contribution to the stabilization fund, which the credit agencies deem to be important to have one. B, it's important to have an annual contribution to it. And you can see here, as we have generally, we've over the last probably 10 years, you'll see historically there wasn't a lot of free cash used at town meeting, and then it was a little bit, and now it's a decent amount. We're $450,000 the last 4 years, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, I know 1 year it was used to offset the tax rate, but generally it's used for capital expenditures, and that is fine. I mean, that's an appropriate use of free cash, but it's also dragging down your essentially the stabilization plus net of appropriation, your reserve fund balance, because you're spending it at a greater rate than you're regenerating it at. So what this is showing is, again, it's not a financial policy, but it's a plan. It's not something you can flip a switch and fix overnight, but it would be some sort of, the assumptions here showing about a 5% reduction in free cash annually towards the capital, if large capital needs are needed in that year to move that towards a debt exclusion, instead of funding it with free cash. Continue the $50,000 like we're doing, or asking town meeting for in this the April 1st 23 town meeting, $50 annual contribution. Keep that as an annual contribution out of the free cash, and then it also assumes a 3% annual expenditure growth. which the free cash regeneration is the percentage based on expenditure. So that's why you can see the free cash amount slowly increasing in the blue bar below. But you can see it's certainly a workable plan that will build us over the next 10 years or so up into that 6% threshold, which is, a good nest egg to have. It's something, it's not good financial policy to spend down your reserve to nothing before you do something about it. You should have a little savings account or something, a rainy day fund. And I'll go into there's a really good example in the next slide here that I'll go into about where a stabilization fund could be used in the future.
And then one quick point, we should say, when can a stabilization fund be used? And that's basically at town meeting vote, I believe
Yep.
2/3. So it's a reserve fund that's really
Yeah, good point.
controlled and really can't just be spent.
Good point. It's similar to free cash, but it's a little harder to spend. You need 2/3 appropriation. And just that little bit extra appropriation and the stigma around it makes it, less easy to spend. So it kind of makes it just a little bit safer. You can go to the next slide. So the next slide, and I can tie it into the free cash and reserves, is this is again from that forecast sheet. This is an attempt to help people visualize our debt obligations, and you can see it gives us some history back to 2013. You can see the delineations of the types of debt down there. We have existing town debt, school existing debt. And then we have town debt that's included within the levy. So if it doesn't, keep in mind that if it doesn't say included, then that's excluded debt. So it's operating, the payment tied specifically to the project and the debt service, and rise and fall with the payments on that service. And so what this is to illustrate is kind of where we've been and where we're going based on the current proposals and overlaid with the existing debt. So you can see in blue, it's the Cutler School, the proposed Cutler School debt exclusion that's coming, not this town meeting, but likely the next town meeting. And then the red up top is the school athletic fields. That's a question on this town meeting and what the impact would be. Essentially, rough math, you could really do this where we have almost 100% in tax revenue, 95%. Generally this is reflective of percentage of taxes on top of what would be normally allowable under the Proposition 2.5 levy limit. Oh, and to tie it in with the stabilization fund, so a nice use of the stabilization fund is it doesn't have to be an emergency where you lost a major revenue source and you need to fill that hole with some funds until you can, rebuild it or, look for ways to work around it. It's good for shaving off peak debt years. So you can see this, we have the large bump where we have current debt that's trailing off, and we have a large bump of new debt coming on. And you can use a stabilization fund to essentially smooth that transition, making the line more level. In a perfect world, the debt curve would have really no curve at all. That you would have an established debt line, and you would, as debt came off, you'd be layering new debt on to keep the tax impact the same over time.
We're lumpy.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, they're never straight. So
So
in a perfect world.
the blue, though, is Cutler, which isn't gonna come on right away, right? The
Yes,
new
you can see it's
school.
aligned with the
But
2025.
but the red is gonna go up that high even if the blue wasn't there yet?
Yeah, well, see, it's a layered chart, so it's each one contributes, so you add them up. If you add all of them together, so if you
Oh,
took
so red
the
was-
blue away,
Yeah,
Then the
red would follow
Then
on
would
green.
okay.
Well, I mean, the red line there, that's actually actually I didn't even bring that up,
fields.
but the town debt exclusion that's on this,
Oh,
the
the
library
purple, that's the purple
HVAC,
line, right?
the real
Skinny.
little one between the blue and the green.
But so blue would probably not start,
Well, blue would still start there.
it's still, okay.
It's just, what's that?
Because, I mean, the thing's not gonna be built for like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, well, I mean, so what this doesn't do is it does not try to time the borrowing and short-term bans as as you work into the long-term issuance. So what this does is it's just in this town meeting, you have authorized this much debt at some point, whether it's
Right.
18 months from the word go, or 24 months from the word go. That's going to be the total debt service. Like whether you get there, if you stage it, and you short-term borrow to cash flow the project until you got to a point where you can borrow the whole thing, or depending on how quick the project is, sometimes it does. You just go out to market and issue a long-term debt right away to fund it. But that would be a strategy that the school would come up with.
Okay.
Any further questions, Diane or Peter?
So this is just showing us what our taxes are gonna kind of look like, but the stabilization fund, if we could build it up, it would help to not have so many peaks
In the future.
in the future.
Yeah, it's
It'll
just,
take a
it's a
while.
nice use that,
Okay.
it's stable,
good idea.
it's like right in the name, stabilization. I can stabilize, the tax needs. And it really, these are just a couple educational pieces we threw together, to talk about leading up to town meeting.
Why had we not put any money in for over 20 years?
I don't know, I mean, it's, we, the town has had a pretty significant, Michelle Bailey, as she may know, when the last time.
Well, we've had, very tight budgets, certainly a few years ago prior when we were into the override situations.
Right.
So, the FinCom back those times, I expect had made the decision that, perhaps something had to give, and the thing that give was we'll just put off
Right.
money for the stabilization fund until next year, and then it became the year after the next year and so forth.
So good
But,
for us.
Yeah, so, Steve has done a great job that we are now moving post-pandemic, and we're getting into a region where we now forecast out what the budgets are gonna be, what the debt service is gonna be, and what the infrastructure and capital planning is gonna be. So, thanks to Steve for all this extra work. All right. Is there a third slide, or is,
Nope,
She does have her hand
all right,
raised.
That's okay.
comment, Michelle?
I was just going to say, several years ago, we did put money into a education stabilization fund, and that money was then subsequently spent by the town. So when we've put money into the stabilization fund, when the budgets have gotten tight, the town has spent the money.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Michelle. All right, so item Q I'll take. So through the past few months, we have made some headway in the basement of the town hall, clearing out records that had accumulated since the new town hall was constructed, including, 70 or 80 boxes that went to the shredder. And at this point, as we went through, it's clear that we do not have a complete set of records on all the different committees, especially some of the small committees. So this is just a call out to former members, former chairs, or anyone that might have electronic records, hard copy records, to please send them in to Town Hall. And Michelle has volunteered her hand right to collect those up, and we'll get those sorted out. So we'll send a letter out defining exactly what we're looking for, and it's basically those records that should be permanently held by the town, that in some cases we don't have complete sets. Comments, Peter?
That's great.
So there is, I did some work on this when I
Right.
was a town clerk, and there is a spreadsheet that has all past committees
All right,
and what records I found, what minutes I found, and what are missing.
all right.
So that might be helpful.
So that's what we're looking for.
Yep. Good.
All right. Item R. So I'll Diane, I think you may want to take this, thinking that perhaps we should do this as a volunteer project, if we can get volunteers to come in and help out with some of the continuing cleanup, or lessen the hours. What's your ideas here?
So you're still talking about the stuff in the basement, going through all that kind of stuff?
So we can report that the basement, that it took most of the day we spent, and we got halfway through financial records. We have restacked the Conservation Commission, assessors, and so forth records, but have really not progressed through those. The Select Board records, Peter went through quite a lot of those, but we also have, we should say, permitting is leading the field. They have done a great job down there of rewrapping tubing up the maps and so forth, but there is more work to be done.
So I think what I'm sensing and what I guess from this is that you were thinking of taking some time, closing town hall and having everybody work again together.
Yes.
I think it's a great idea. I wouldn't recommend doing it right away. I thought maybe that could be like a semi-annual
All right.
type thing. We need have some senior volunteers that could really be helpful with that, to figure all that out and use that, and then just maybe do a semi-annual employee half-day or whatever.
All right.
That's what I would recommend.
Then the plea goes out for
For help.
senior tax work-off people would be the best deal for them. Otherwise, direct volunteers. Essentially, it would entail taking a box of files, comparing those to the state archives mandatory records.
Retention
and
manual.
Retention manual, and sorting out what is not needed, and then what is left to actually catalog them onto a spreadsheet, so we know where these records are at and how complete they are. So,
And someone would obviously help, be TA or a select board member to go through, because the retention manual has so many different pieces.
yes,
and,
yes, yeah.
They call things different things, but the public records department is very easy to get to. You can call and get an answer and say, I have this piece of paper, where is it? What am I supposed to do? And they're pretty helpful, so.
So
Seniors that
long-term
like
project.
that sounds great.
All right. Then on to S.
Wow, we're flying.
So the Master Planning Advisory Committee was established with representation from many different other town committees. The question was posed, though, that because in some circumstances, we end up having two select board members present at a Master Planning Advisory Committee meeting, even though from different origins. We checked with the town council, and they said best practice and probably not to be done. So what we have now is that the planning board, as always, chooses whoever they want to send, but we need to decide which of the three of us will be the select board representative to the Master Planning Advisory Committee. Diane, you started off, and we swapped out there for a while.
Well, we started off, and I did mention that it could be an issue,
All right,
but for some reason, we thought it was gonna be okay for a little bit, because Pete was the planning board
one of
person.
the attendees from the
Right,
planning board,
right,
yes.
so, so then I stepped down, you stepped in, and things went on. I don't know if we're aware what, besides the master plan, doing all their meetings in the box, what's going on there, but, so I don't know, between us, I guess it sort of depends on whether Pete wants to be the select board
I'll do it.
person or the planning board person.
If you're okay, I'll do it.
Yeah, so, yeah, really, Pete can't be the planning board person because there needs to be one from the select board,
Okay,
right? So the planning board, other than,
I think Rick Woodland's on it.
yes, so the planning board has two rotating seats. So from now on, those seats will be determined by the planning board, just as long as it's not Peter.
Right.
And if we're in agreement, Peter, unless
yep, Peter can,
Peter
because he's
will be
been
the
more
select
involved.
board representative from the select board to the master planning. And that way, then there would be the
So when
quorum
the
question.
master planning advisory committee was established by the select board, and the members
The-
were appointed by the select board.
Yes, the recommended composition was determined by the planning board, came to us for the approval.
Right. So why is the planning board able to rotate their members when,
That's how it was
that's how it was
set up.
set?
They did not designate any individuals on their 2 seats
Okay,
there.
I didn't
Right.
remember that.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so let's,
Move that the Wenham Select Board vote to appoint Pete Clay from the Select Board to the Master Plan Advisory Committee.
second. Can't, you know.
So he's gonna
Any further
abstain, right?
comments?
No.
Otherwise, roll call vote. Peter?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Gary, yes. So that's all settled. All right, item T. So the warrant should be arriving in your mailbox shortly.
Got it.
All right, there is, besides town meeting, there's 3 items on the ballot as well, which appears either early voting or on 6 April,
Or absentee voting.
or absentee voting as well. So if any of the 3 of us want to make any comments or recommendations on any of the ballot measures?
Well, we might as well, since you brought it up. So the first ballot question is the same ballot question that they have in Hamilton for the fields, right? The $15 million
Right.
athletic fields project. So it's a huge project, probably very needed for the school community. It's gonna take a lot of money. So it is gonna increase taxes somewhat, but only for the life of the loan. So there's those are the facts. And that's all I can say.
Peter, any comments?
Nope.
All right. So also on the Fields project, we started the work with the 5 chairs and the quintuple committees back in December to bring this forward. As Superintendent Tracy pointed out, that the fields are in fact considered a classroom by DESI. So there's minimum standards there, and certainly there's work to be done there. And I think the vote for the $15 million, that figure came about as the bond council wanted to have a figure that would encompass the entire possible project. And we know that the warrant article will draw that down by whatever grants and fundraising and so forth they do. So the question is, yeah, very expensive, but I think we can count on Superintendent Tracy to control the cost and put forward a final design that meets his needs for accreditation and yet takes into account, you know, the limitations or tax tolerance for the 2 towns.
Yep.
Right. Then second issue ballot is on our own $200,000 borrowing, which is the fire station roof and HVAC for the library.
Right.
So as we saw, it's a pretty thin line
Small
on that
increase,
chart.
yep.
And just part of our long-range plan that we're putting in place to keep our own infrastructure up to date and to do it on a measured basis, and also to, you know, meet the immediate needs of a fairly old roof. And the library, especially the HVAC, as Kim Butler has showed us the details, that very escalating repair costs and difficulties, supply chain and so forth, that really it's the time to replace most of those components.
I would agree with
Right.
that. And then you get the 3 to 5. So I have 4 ideas in my head.
Right.
I have to say that working on a 3-member board is awesome and difficult at the same time. There can be no communication between the 3 of us outside of this meeting, and sometimes it's hard to talk in this kind of environment. So 5 members, I think, would make it easier on each member because there's a little bit more leeway in speaking, although there are serious open meeting law violations that can happen when 5 people, one person talks to a person, and then that person talks to a person, and so you have to be very careful. It's just a different set of open meeting law violations when that happens, but it's sort of hard to get as much work done as we all want to get done, because there's only 3 of us, and everybody has things to do, and there's nobody that probably works as hard or as diligently as Gary. So I don't know, 5 members, maybe we could get some more stuff done, because that, you know, that would be good. But with 5 members, it's also hard to come to consensus. With 3, there's just 3 opinions. 5 people have 5 different opinions. Sometimes it's hard to wrangle everybody together. But then again, 5 different opinions bring in 5 different viewpoints. As you can see, I'm going back and forth on this, right? I've been thinking about it for over a year. So my last thought is if it does pass, Wenham will always require as much involvement as they've shown in the past 2 years. So before the past 2 years, there was very little involvement in the town of Wenham's government. A lot of complacent people, everything was fine, there was no big issues until all of a sudden there was an issue. So once everything gets back to normal, which I think we're very close to, we would just have to make sure that the town of Wenham residents know that they have to step up, because we need 5 people if we're gonna be a 5-member board. So those are all my thoughts on that, back and
Peter?
forth.
The fact that the first time we discuss any issues are actually in these meetings is really, so I see that
Hard.
going to 5, that's a real plus. I mean, so, let's go.
It would be nice to come to a meeting and at least know what one person is thinking.
And I know from, just business experience, that, the 3 people making a decision is much better than 5. Except in business, you don't have open meeting laws,
Right.
so. I like
So
the way
it's-
we work. Because I think we've gotten a lot done in the last year, especially.
I think we do a lot through Steve, so I feel like I tell Steve and we all,
but-
it does work, but
I think
there's pros and cons,
there are pros and cons, but I think, I see the pros.
more.
Yeah, certainly, it's a mixed question, because as you said, the 5 adds more people in, more ideas and so forth, but it also, you may see in other towns, the fact that it also allows 2 to coordinate and to discuss or rearrange their own decisions outside of the transparency that we had under the previous times.
True.
The cost is gonna be modest, a little bit more for 2 more computers and so forth. But I think the other thing that we should look at is the fact that when you look at towns with 5 members, that eventually or immediately, you need to start moving towards a town manager as opposed to a town administrator. So as you said, you can't have 5 opinions easily mold down to 1 on all subjects, and especially on routine, day-to-day, or larger ideas. So inevitably,
Sure.
the town, if we go to 5 select board members, the town also is gonna have to accept the fact that your select board will not be quite so into the details or onto some of the smaller matters, and that a town manager would make more hiring decisions, more budget expending decisions, and that the select board would move to less involvement in some areas and become more of just a policy-making board. So, we have a ballot coming up on 6 April. I hope people have considered that and understand that there are pros and cons. And you may look, it gets down to, do you think 1 town with 5, 3, West Newbury, Raleigh, Hamilton, Wenham, is it worth the change? Do you want to make that change? And I think it comes down, it's a very subjective question.
I think you raise an excellent point, though, is that Steve would have to move towards town manager.
Yes.
The town would have to, so
Yeah,
that's,
the
that's,
town
a-
has-
So my
so
wife-
it's a bigger change than just going from 3 to 5. It is a change in our government.
Yes, it is. You're not just adding 2 people, you are really changing the dynamics within town hall and how we operate.
Yep.
And I think we can all say that, we're still open for emails or other inputs, because this, for the select board with the timing here, there is, won't be another meeting before, well, there will be 1 more meeting before the
Before
ballot.
the election, but not
But
before.
it's something that people may want to weigh in at the warrant hearing, which is Monday at 7 o'clock. And we'll leave it at that.
So one other thing that's come to my mind, so when we had the government study to go from 3 to 5, and we had it at town meeting, and it was decided to go forward, and we had discussed when we were gonna vote on this. And I very much pushed to have it a full year to think about it, to go through it. It's a huge change for the town. So I have to say, my mind has changed multiple times over the year. We've got another choice coming up at town meeting about our town clerk. So changing your town clerk from elected to appointed is also a big change. And for everybody who's thinking about it, and I hope everybody is thinking about it, is it something we want to do? Is it something we want to do, number one, and is it something we want to do quickly? Or is it something you want to do and take some time and really digest it and spread it out over a good year to think it through? So,
So, it's a big change. You know, there's a letter up on the second floor, I think, 1767, signed by 3 select board members. And so it's been in place for a long time, and we'll see what the public really wants to do on this one.
yep.
Anything else?
That's it.
All right. So item T, U wraps it up. Steve, anything else?
I have nothing.
All right.
Mr. Chair.
Do we meet, don't we normally have a meeting before
Yeah,
town
so,
meeting?
yeah, on the schedule then, we have the warrant hearing, the annual town meeting on April 1st, and we will,
Probably have a pre-meeting
yeah, so we'll have a
with the select board.
pre-meeting, as will
with-
FinCom, to consider any last-minute changes and to
Are you talking
digest
on-
what happens from
On
Hamilton.
Saturday?
Well, yeah, on Saturday. So town meeting at 1, we'll plan to meet at noon. And that way we can have whatever results occur at Hamilton's town meeting that may affect things and what might come up between now and then. Then we'll have a select board meeting on the Tuesday, the 4th, and the election's on the 6th. But I hope
That's
a good crowd shows up and asks questions at the warrant hearing so that when we get into town meeting, we can move forward already
So
informed.
that's a meeting similar to this. We'll have the FinCom here, we'll be here, well, it's a FinCom's
Yep.
meeting, we'll be here, and then the public is virtual.
Yeah, the public will be virtual, and we'll be
Okay.
hopefully fielding a lot of questions for the Commonwealth.
Perfect.
All right. Then our favorite motion? Peter?
So, I move we adjourn the March 21st, 2023 Select Board meeting at 7:49.
Second.
Anything further? Otherwise, roll call vote. Peter?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes,
Gary, yes.
thank you.
All right. Michelle's complete?
So,
HW Cam is complete?